Welcome back to part 2 of this HTML intro series. In this class, we pick up right where we left off from class number 1. So if you haven't seen that, you may want to check that out first. What will we cover in this class? Well, all of the following: creating links, links-related functionality, why do we use them and how, images, how to place them vertically and horizontally, how to change the size of images, using the figure and Figcaption tags, creating tables, spanning multiple rows and columns, forms and form controls, HTML5 date input field, how to use comments, and attributes like ID, class, div, and span. And then we'll round it out with a final project to create something pulling all this stuff together over the first 2 classes. And I will leave you with links for more learning. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. All right, here we get into links as our first topic in section 2. And we're talking about href, or hypertext reference. This is used to create a link to another page. Href is an attribute of an anchor tag. An anchor is a piece of text which marks the beginning and or the end of a hypertext link, which is also used to identify sections within a document. So it doesn't need to just be off to another page. It could be sections within a document. We'll show an example of that. Href contains 2 components: the URL, or the Uniform Resource Locator, which is a protocol for specifying addresses on the internet. This is the actual link. And then there's the clickable piece, the part that you click on when you go in and click on a link to Google or your home page or what have you. That's called the anchor text. So you see here we have href, or we have A for anchor, then href for hypertext reference equals our link. We want to go to the Google homepage. And then we have in between our opening and closing tags the word Google. And of course we end with the /A closing anchor tag. And on the right hand side, that would show up as just the word Google, which is clickable. Right? It's a link, so we can click there and we're routed to the Google homepage. Then we have within paragraph tags, again, href index.html. We're going to a page now, a specific page relative to our local website. Homepage is the name of the text, which is the very thing that will show up as the clickable link. So sometimes folks get confused with how to reference or how to give the path to the actual object. So create the path to links relative to the page that is trying to access them. So if you take this first one here, this shoes/shoes.html, that tells me that shoes.html is in a parent directory called shoes. Okay, and the link for that page would be shoes page. Then we have shoes/shoestype, shoestype.html. So this is telling me that if I want to get to the shoestype.html, I have to go into its parent folder, which is shoes type, and then its parent folder, which is shoes. So we always want to be able to reference, if you can just remember to create the path relative to the page that is trying to access it, you probably will not have a problem. Now, to get to a parent folder, we would want to do the .. and then the name of the file. So if we pretend for a moment that we're in shoes, we're at the level of shoes.html, or in the shoes folder, right? Because shoes.html lives in the shoes folder and we wanted to get to index, all we'd have to do is a .. and then index. That takes us up a level from where we are in the tree, right? If you think of the directory structure as a tree, we're on a lower branch, if you will, right? To get to index, we must go up one, and then we can access index.html. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know and I'll try again. All right, so what else can we do with links? So I mentioned on the previous slide that we could actually link to a place within our page. So here we have a #blog. Now this gets a little bit into CSS referencing. What the # is, all that means is I'm looking for an ID tag with the name of blog. And what happens is when I click there, it's going to take me right down to this text right here that says my blog for today. because that's what's in that paragraph tag, in that H2 tag with the ID of blog. So it's going to jump me right down to there. Okay. The next thing I can do is use it to mail, right, for somebody's email address. So we see mail to bugs@bunny.com with the clickable link of Bugs email. So that will open me up my mail client to be able to email Bugs. Then I can also do something which is pretty cool. I can force the link to open into a new page, right? So I can do href www.google.com and then use the target attribute equals, and then in quotes, -blank. And that's going to take me into a new page. Okay, so those are some of the other things that don't always get emphasized in trainings that you can do that you might find useful when you're using links. Okay, let's transition into images and how to use those as part of your web pages. So here I have an H1 tag, a heading tag with the text images, and then underneath there I have an IMG for image, and then SRC for source, and then the path to the JPEG file that I want to render, which is this computer-looking, Mac computer from the top down with two speakers. So it's as simple as that. And Alt, it provides a description of the image if you're unable to see it, which becomes very handy for some users. So we want to make sure we always have that. And then we have a title attribute, which will provide text when we hover over the picture to tell us what that picture is. And that would be useful too, especially if it doesn't render. So that's as simple as it is, the source attribute inside the image tag to get the picture to render. And here I give you an example of how to change the height and the width of the image very quickly right inside your HTML document. A lot of times you'll be doing this inside your CSS or cascading style sheet document. But if you need to do it quickly, you can do it here with width equals and then the name and the number in pixels. Same with height equals and the number in pixels. In the next set of slides, we'll talk about something that can be very important, and that is the placement of your image relative to your text. So you see simply here, I have the same line I had on the very last slide, and that is the image and the width and the height set. And then I have a paragraph right behind it, and you can see how that renders on the screen. Image first, right below it in the next line, the text. Now here we have our image inside the start of paragraph tag. So I have my opening P tag, and then I have that same statement for the image. Then I have my text, and I close it. And you see it happens that the text starts to the right-hand side of that picture. Now I think this starts to get even more useful because we can align our image left or right. So here in my statement with the image, my IMG SRC image statement, my very last attribute is align, and I set it to equal to left. So what you see here is I have the text that kind of swims around this image. I think that's probably the most pleasing and natural way to see it. So that's how we do this. We can do align left, we can do align right. And in case you were wondering, you can do align top to align the image vertically. This aligns the first line of text to the top of the image. Not always so pleasing, but play with it, see what you come up with. And just to round it out, this is what a line equals bottom looks like. It aligns the first line of text to the bottom of the image. It looks a little sharper. And here's some guidance that I have found useful, and maybe you will as well, on using images and formatting and types. Number one, when the picture has many different colors, use type of JPEG. Use a GIF or a PNG when the image has few colors or large areas of the same colors. Save the image size to be the same as you want it to appear on the web page. Always set images in pixels, not inches or centimeters. It's best to save images at 300 dpi, dots per inch, or higher for best picture results. And creating images that are partially transparent. Here's some guidance there. If the transparent part of the image has straight edges and is 100% transparent, save it as a GIF with the transparency option selected. Otherwise, save it as a PNG. Hopefully that helps you. And the last thing we'll talk about relative to images is the figure and Figcaption tags. This is new as of HTML5. HTML5 came out a few years ago. I think right now we're up to HTML 5.2, maybe later by the time you watch this. So notice here I have figure tags as the parent tags, if you will. Inside there I have paragraphs, and I have my image statement, so IMG SRC, to a given picture. And then what I can do is I align bottom, and then I can have Figcaptions also inside my parent figure tabs, and then I have these are special pencils. So it kind of makes it look nice, like all in one little unit. So you might want to make use of this as you use HTML5, which you should be at this point. Now it's table time. Tables represent information in a grid format. If you're familiar with Excel, you can think of tables that way, columns and rows. Each block in the grid is referred to as a table cell. The table tags are used to create the table itself. Then we have the TR tags, which start each row, and the TD tags, which represent the cell of a table. TH is used like TD, but its purpose specifically is to represent the header for either a column or a row. Then we have the col span or the column span, used to span X numbers of columns to span across, or the row span, and that's the same thing for rows, how many rows to span across. And here is an example of our very first table, just a simple table, no borders around this table, and we're using all the tags we just talked about. So notice we start with table, which denotes that we have a table inside these opening and closing tags. Then we have TR for our first row, and we have TH, our first header. Nothing is in there. And that would, if we had something in there, fill the space right here in this corner. But we've elected to have nothing in there. We have two other headers, the second TH for movie 1 and the third TH for movie 2, and they're represented right here in our table. So you start to get a feel for how this thing is constructed. It's not always that intuitive. Then we close our TR, so we close our first row. Now we move into the second row or the second line, and we know it's going to start with time. Oh, and indeed it does. TH, time right here. Then we move across that row, and we have 7 p.m., and then the last cell on that row would be 10 p.m., and indeed it is, and we close that row. And so it goes like this. Okay, so now this table looks a little bit different. So what's the very first thing we see? We see this table has a border, and it's a 1 pixel wide border, and you can see it right here around the table. Then we have pretty much similar content to what we saw in the previous page, except now we're using the column span functionality here, or the attributes, and we see, let's look at this table. So we have 4 movies across the top, and then we have time, price, and beverages down the side, and we see that we have a 3 column span for time. So movies 1, 2, and 3 start at 7 p.m. and movie 4 starts at 10 p.m. We do the same for the price of the movie, $10.50 for 1, 2, and 3, $12.50 for movie number 4. Now we get to beverages, and we're going to span the column 4 across. Well, you better come well hydrated, because I don't know how many movie theaters insist upon you paying $15.50 for something to drink. So $15.50 across all 4, and we span 4 cells for this column. Now we'd like to expose you to some other tags for tables. We have the Thead Tbody Tfoot tags. These help people use screen readers, which is software applications that enable people with visual impairments to use a computer. These also allow you to style tables in a different way. And one of my most popular courses up on the Yogi Coder site is that around data tables. And data tables makes use of Thead and Tbody to do what it does. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It's pretty neat. It accommodates for longer tables, as the browser can keep the header and footer visible when scrolling down the table. The headings of the table should be within the Thead tags. The body of the table should be within the Tbody, and the footer, of course, in the Tfoot tags. And now we come to forms and form controls. What are forms used for on a web page? Well, they're either used to get data or to post data into a database. So forms are the functionality that enable this to happen. So here we have a simple login form. And what we have here is we have a text field for the email. We have a password type field for the password. We have a checkbox for the user to tell us if they want to stay logged in. And we have a submit button. All very basic tools and basic data points for a form. Here we expose you to forms with validation. So what is form validation or input validation? It's actually very important, especially with the background I come from in the security land and the risk land. It's how I make my bread and butter. It will force you to do things like require a certain convention or require that the form field be filled out at all. So it helps to combat different malware attacks. There's many different tools that perform validation. Sometimes the application itself, sometimes the web browser performs validation. Sometimes there are other packages, like with Django, we use Crispy Forms. I'm sure other frameworks use Crispy Forms as well, or different packages. But here, the HTML itself can do a level of validation. Require equals required, so telling us that this is a required field. There's many ways to do input validation, and they're very important and they're very helpful. When recording this presentation, it is late December 2019. So the most current version of HTML, I believe, is 5.3, which came out in October 2018. But with the advent of HTML5, there were a lot of neat little things. And this is one. The date input field has this nice little date picker. It just looks very sharp. So you see here, we have form action. So we have date field in our H1 tag. And then we have form action. We'll go to, made up URL, testing.com. The method is to post, so we want to post something to the database. We want something to be received and stored in the database. We have a label for date. We have date : as the thing that will be visible to the user in the interface. And then we have an input type of date, name of password. Why I chose that, I don't know. It is required. And then we have a submit button with the value of submit. So you see, when you go ahead and click in that field, in that date field, it brings up this wonderful little calendar, which has become very standard, but it's just very slick to use. And of course, comments are an extremely valuable tool for any developer, not just for somebody else who will take up your code, but even for yourself. I go back a month or two later because I write so much code in so many different styles and I'm learning so many different things. I'm like, why did I do it that way? What does this do? And I kind of have to relearn. Hence comments. And these are what comments look like for HTML codes. The way we implement comments for different languages tends to differ. For Python, it's a hashtag. For JavaScript, it's, I believe they're // 2 // for JavaScript. And for HTML, it is the less than sign with a bang and these 2 dashes. And to close it, it's 2 dashes and the greater than sign. So you see examples here. Anything that you put in comments, of course, does not get rendered. So the user does not see it. It's not experienced by the user. So use them as much as you can to clarify your code for yourself and others. Here I exposed you to the ID attribute. Every HTML element may have an ID attribute used to uniquely identify it. Here's an example. In paragraph tags, ID equals big time. So that would be the unique identifier for that particular paragraph tag. This becomes extremely important once we get into CSS or cascading style sheets. So 3 more tags that you will find extremely useful. You will use them all the time. Get to know them. The class attribute, div, and span elements. So class can be used to identify several elements, for example, a paragraph. Div allows for grouping a set of elements together in one block level. And span acts like an inline equivalent of the div element. So instead of in a box form, they span across. We will use them all the time with CSS. Okay, my friends, here's where we pull everything that we've learned together over the last 2 courses, the HTML level 1 and this one, into one final project. Now, you might be saying this looks like you styled this. Yes, I did, but I'm going to show it to you both ways. So this is just a simple website page with CSS used to style our web layout. And this also kind of pushes us in the direction of using CSS, kind of gets our whistles wet for what comes next. So I have the code. The code will be stored in GitHub as I do all my presentations. So you'll be able to have both the HTML and you'll be able to have the CSS. And I'll show it to you both ways. This is what it looks like. This is the final. And obviously we have different parts and pieces. We're using date picker. We're using an input box for a search. We're using all the different things that we talked about here, pretty much. As I promised you, so you can get a sense of how much of this stuff is made pretty with CSS, that would be just about all of it. This is what it looks like with the flat HTML code, no CSS. Okay, and here's our HTML file. Again, you'll find it up in GitHub. I give you the link here. I will also post that link so it's clickable in the presentation below the video. So you see we have the head section, we have the HTML tag opening, and then we have the head section, and I use a CDN here for Google Fonts. A lot of folks do that to make the font look a little bit nicer. I do have the link to my CSS, this link rel style sheet href, and then an internal structure.css file that I created. Then we have the body with the header. We have a nav component. We have a form component. We have a main that includes the article and more forms and an aside section and a footer. So it has all the basic building blocks that you'd expect to see. And in the aside, we have some links. So I will have the code up there. Play with it, expand upon it. This is your time now. Take it, flip it upside down, change the colors, do whatever you want to do, add different things to it. And of course, we'll build upon this as we get into CSS, the CSS components, which will be following these classes. And here are some links that I find very helpful. You might find them helpful as well. The MDN web docs hosted by Mozilla, they have beginning tutorials, they have reference guides, they have advanced topics. Everything you ever want to know about HTML is up there. Also CSS and JavaScript, but this class is on HTML. Just wanted to let you know it's there. HTML.com resources, they have cheat sheets and tutorials and web hosting guidance and a lot more. HTML5 rocks, they have a lot of HTML5 resources. codingheroes.io. Jonas, I've taken his classes before in JavaScript up on Udemy. He has some really great links in there for web development in general, different sources, icons, and different things. It's great. And then Yogi Coder Sites, we have the YouTube channel and the GitHub web link there. So everything you need right there. Okay, coding family, thank you for watching till the end. If this class has helped you, consider helping me to continue to bring these classes to you and others. Helping is easy. Just do the following. First, subscribe to the Yogi Coder YouTube channel, and all you have to do is click on my little icon here on the lower right-hand side, and it'll bring up the subscription button right away. Next, you can leave whatever comments or questions you'd like. And finally, share this video on any and all social media channels with your friends and your colleagues. Thank you again for watching, and until we meet again, happy coding.